Welcome to Unique People Stories. What is the strangest way you found out a friend was wealthy? It was around 1985. I was active duty Army and stationed in central New Jersey. I was living in the barracks at the time, going through a divorce, and hated at the barracks, so I always looked for someplace to go at night. I had stumbled upon a Hilton Inn lounge one night and it just seemed to fit me. Became a regular. Friends with the staff. Doing the Sunday crossword puzzle together from the newspaper. Yes, we read newspapers back then. Anyway, on to the rich person. I am leaving one night, and as I approached my car I hear a woman cursing. I looked over and saw that she had a flat tire. Being the good soldier I was, I walked over and offered my assistance, which resulted in a round of cursing me out that they could take care of themselves. Of course, this was pre-cell phone days, so her options were limited, so she said she was going back inside to call AAA. Her friend said, "Why don't you just let him help?" So reluctantly hands me her keys. It was a brand new Lincoln Town car and you had to unlock the hubcap to get to the lug nuts. Change the tire, refuse any money, glad to help, and on my way. A couple weeks later, at the Hilton, and bartender tells me my beer is on them, and I look to see the same two ladies. I acknowledge the offer and eventually they asked me to join them. It was a quiet night, so I thought, why not? Now mind you, I am about 25 at this time and these ladies are 50-ish, shall we say, and I had nothing but platonic thoughts here. You could tell there was a difference between the two. The one dressed more simply, talked what I would call more real. The other, the town car lady, always a little bit on the defensive side but also a little more sophisticated, and was definitely the big drinker of the two. So for the next year and a half or so we would fairly regularly run into each other. Never anything planned, and have our conversations over a couple drinks. There was never any obligation to give all my attention to them, as I was quite younger and did have attention from others my age group. Fast forward to 1986. I am nearing the end of my enlistment, and sure enough I run into them. In conversation I mentioned I had decided not to re-enlist and was actively looking for work post-army time. Town car lady tells me to let her know if I can't find anything and she would help me out, and promptly excuses herself for the restroom. The friend moves to the seat next to me to explain what she means. Now I knew the lady was, shall we say, well off, with the town car and the way she dressed and carried herself, but I didn't realize how well off. The friend explains. What she means by help you out is to take care of you. You can live with her at her mansion. You will have your own bedroom and an allowance for clothes and such. You can live your life as you choose. The only requirement was to be available for her when she had social engagements and whenever she felt the need to put on airs. My immediate response was more of a laughter, like this is not real. Turns out this lady is part of what we call the 1% today. I asked the friend quite frankly, is this why you hang out with her, because she has the money, even though she can be quite obnoxious when drinking? She explained that when she was in an abusive relationship, town car lady was the one that bailed her and her children out and allowed her to get her life together, and for that would be forever grateful. Town car lady returns from the restroom and you can tell is expecting an answer to the offer. I politely decline the offer with the caveat of let me see what I can accomplish myself first. I never saw them again. This happened in high school for me. This girl was popular in my class. Well liked. Down to earth. Humble. Very approachable. She didn't have a car. She didn't ever wear anything flashy or expensive. Just simple jeans and t-shirts and normal teen girl clothes. She blended in with everyone at my high school. Free of airs. She was more of an acquaintance than a friend, at least with regards to me. We also attended a normal suburban public high school. It was very well regarded for its rigorous academics, and had nice facilities for a public school. But it didn't attract the really rich. The really rich sent their kids to the clearly superior, pricey private schools on the other side of the county. Or so I innocently thought. Near the end of senior year of high school, this girl decides to have a small get-together at her house, for everyone in the class, mind you. We were like 40 to 50 people. She sends out the invites. I get mine for this small get-together. I was wondering whether this was truly a small get-together, but I didn't think much of it. She was just going to cram everyone in her biggish suburban backyard and have a barbecue, as a previous friend had done for his senior party. It would be a fun spring picnic. No big deal. The day of the shindig. My parents drive me to her house. We drive through a normal suburban development, with normal houses. Then we get to this part of the main suburban road where there are no houses to the left, just trees. And this small road that branches off the main road and into the trees. My parents make a left turn. We enter and go up this very windy, narrow road, completely forested on both sides. And we keep going and going. Then we end up at an elaborate brick gate off to the side. The road kept going to our right. Confused. I buzz the gate to see if we got lost or we were at the wrong address. I mention the girl's name. And nope. It's the right address. To my surprise, the gate opens up and my parents drive through. As we continue to drive, the forest opens up onto a huge field, with horses. We keep driving. Then the field makes way for stables. Suddenly, in the distance through a break in the trees, is this massive brick mansion. It looked like a Tudor castle with all these chimneys popping up, and with a fountain roundabout in front of it, like you see in the movies. This memory to me is reminiscent of the movie, Bridesmaids, when the protagonist goes to the rich woman's mansion for a bridal party. This house looked a lot like that mansion in the film. This was easily an ancient edifice with 20+ bedrooms, ancient for the suburbs. That is. My parents drop me off at the roundabout, and I enter this 2-story foyer that stretches on forever. The small get-together was in the back of the house, in this immense marble-clad ballroom with huge chandeliers hanging from ceilings that were almost 2 stories above the ground, and with large, old European paintings hanging on the walls. I spot my friends in the crowd milling in this enormous space. I look at them. They look at me. We look around. This girl was loaded, and we had not the slightest clue. We later find out her dad inherited his money and was an art dealer. We had a fun time. But it surprises you sometimes who is rich and who is not in this world, and who ends up sending their kids to a free public school. Some people just do not show off their wealth in the slightest way. I mistook my friend's butler to be their uncle and one of their homes to be a hotel. This occurred when I was 10 years old. I met 2 twin girls when we were 8 and attending an after-school maths program. At that time I was attending an extremely run-down and underfunded public school while they were attending an elite private all-girls school. As an 8-year-old, I knew that meant they were considerably wealthier than my family. However, I had no idea just how rich their family truly was. Anyhow, at 10 I was at the maths program and was waiting for my mother in the waiting room where she was filling in paperwork for me to leave the following week. The girls were having a birthday party the next fortnight to which I was invited to. In the waiting room, they were speaking to a man I had never seen before with a British accent. Both their parents were British, so I assumed he was their uncle. When the girls left the room for a while, I realized I didn't know the address to their house and asked their uncle for it. He wrote down the address and then explained that Mrs. Smith, not their mother's actual surname, won't be there till later as she was coming home from the airport after her holiday. Believing he was related, I found it strange that he addressed them formally and asked why he did so. He explained that he was in actual fact their butler and not their uncle. I thought this was a joke and simply laughed. On the day of their birthday, my mother found her way to the address on the map book. We were warned that it would take at least an hour's drive as it was in the countryside. After passing heaps of horses neatly groomed, we arrived at a mansion with marble pillars and staircases. I believed it was a hotel until the butler opened the door and showed us around. He explained that this house was one of 3 that the family owned. To this day, I still haven't met anyone as rich as they were. Better than finding out a friend is wealthy. I'll tell the story of how I found out my wife was wealthy. My wife and I had met while she was in grad school and working a part-time job for not all that much money. We dated for 2 years and decided to get married. At which point she had a full-time job not paying all that much money. I met her parents a few times before the wedding. They were both in their mid-60s and had retired recently. They flew coach, and wore t-shirts and jeans, khakis with old sneakers. When we had dinner, I paid, which isn't saying much as they would usually ask for Thai food takeout. I just thought they were a regular middle-class family based on their appearances, as well as all my wife's descriptions of her upbringing. 4 months after my wife and I were married, a small affair at the local town hall, I inherited $60 US dollars when my mother's estate was finally settled about a year after she passed away. At the time, my wife and I were renting a 1-bedroom apartment. One night during our after-dinner cleanup in the kitchen, I said to my wife that with this extra $60,000 it might be a good time for us to make a down payment on our own condo in the city, or perhaps on a house in the suburbs. My wife said, "That's okay. Hold on to your money. I was talking to my dad recently and he said he can give us up to $1 million to help with that." I said, "Oh, how much was that you said?" Very nonchalantly she once again said it was $1 million. I just nodded and said that would be great and I'd be very appreciative. Inside I felt like I'd just won $1 million on a scratch-off ticket. In retrospect, The only clue was that my wife's younger sister is a bit more cosmopolitan in her choice of clothing. Other than that, I honestly had no idea. I was at university and became friends with a student who was from Asia. His older brother had been at the same university and had done very well. But my friend spent more time in the pub and at the snooker table than in lecture halls. Occasionally he would say he was short of funds and would I lend him some money, which I did. He repaid me in a haphazard way, but I figured he was keeping count. I just considered that he and his family were not wealthy and his family were doing their best to support him as an overseas student. A few years after we finished university, I had a stopover in his city. Gave him a call, no cell phones in those days. Suggested we catch up, and he agreed. But he was not happy. Why was I staying at a hotel and not at his family's place? I said I didn't want to have them put up a stranger. He said a car will pick me up and hung up. A car with two rather burly men came to the hotel. Told me to pack my bags and to go with them. They took me to a tower of apartments. Took me to the top floor and to a suite where a butler was waiting who did butler things. My friend arrived shortly after. He was upset, saying that I had caused him to lose face. He owned the tower of apartments and put me in the penthouse. Turns out his father had been giving him and his brother a tower of apartments for their birthdays, and now they had several of these blocks of apartments in the city. His father came to see me and told me that I had thwarted his plans to have his son on starvation rations at university in the hope that his son would have no money to do anything but study. Finding out more, I found that this was a very wealthy family. Pleased to say that he and I are still good friends over many years. Thank you for listening. Do you have a story where you found out that your friend was secretly rich? Check out our other videos. Like, share and subscribe if you like the content.